Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
Vintage James Harden. We got vintage James Harden. That fourth quarter was an explosion. 31 points on the night. He was absolutely delivering. Maybe I can speak correctly. Delivering fantastic basketball when the Sixers really needed it. That was magnificent. That was beautiful. We have a series tied going to Miami. And oh, by the way, for the 8,000th time, Joel Embiid is that much of a difference maker for the idiots out there who tried telling all of us that we were overreacting to the lack of Joel Embiid in Game 1 and Game 2. Bam is a bum. Bam is not good when Joel Embiid is out there. Quite frankly, he's afraid when Joel Embiid is out there. When Tobias is playing on him, he'll have fun, okay? When they play the zone, he'll be able to cut a little bit better. But if you don't see the difference, Joel Embiid was insane defensively. When I saw him play Oladipo 101 out by the perimeter, I felt something in my pants. When I watched him one-on-one play against Hero, he did it multiple times on Oladipo. I mean, he blocked Marcus Morris. Not that he had any business playing basketball because he's been out for quite some time, unfortunately, for the horrific injury that happened due to Jokic and what he did when he lost his cool. But Joel Embiid defensively is a monster. We could break down how the Sixers need to do a better job at getting Joel Embiid the ball with certain spots on the floor. And you watch the Miami Heat front him, which caused a little bit of some issues with getting the ball to him and some passings, which led to some turnovers. And then Miami did take advantage on the fast break and get up and down the court, which at times hurt you. And, of course, Jimmy Butler was a dog. He had 40+. He was outrageous. The rest of the team sucked. The rest of the Miami Heat actually sucked today. They weren't making their shots. It's kind of weird how this works, huh? When the Sixers were on the road in Game 1 and 2, they couldn't buy a bucket. Miami's on the road. They can't buy a bucket. Now, the difference is the big man. That's the difference for the Sixers. Think about the intensity defensively on how you have to target in on Joel Embiid compared to if it's DeAndre Jordan and Paul Reed. It's night and day. Now, I thought a key part to this game was that fourth quarter. You had Embiid on the bench. You had Paul Reed in the game. Bam comes back. You talk about his foul problems. And yeah, Scott Foster does what Scott Foster does. He's going to make it living hell for both teams. We're going to bitch and complain because it's a nightmare every time he has the whistle in his damn mouth. That's just the nature of the beast. You had bad calls where Danny Green was playing excellent defense. He has his hands up and down, his arms up and down. They're going to call a foul. After Joel Embiid accidentally hit Jimmy Butler in the face, which should have been called a flagrant, and it was, Tobias Harris gets chopped into the throat. Tobias Harris goes down. They don't even review it. That is a shot in the face in today's era of basketball. That's a flagrant. This is how it goes. So we can go back and forth on the miserable lack of calls and then the miserable calls on both sides. At the end of the day, when the Sixers needed it most, James Harden stepped up, and they had better team play surrounding James Harden. But Embiid went off in the first quarter, scoring 15 points on 6 shots. That was outrageous, finding areas in the soft spots and delivering a mid-range jet. His threes definitely looked off. There's no denying it. And luckily, I utilized my Betway app, and I landed Joel Embiid. The over-under on threes was set at a half. I took the over. The 1 3 he cashed in was banked off the top of the backboard and ends up going in. I mean, sometimes you see a shot that's kissed off the backboard and it's in the square. This thing was outrageously off and it goes in. But you could tell pregame that he looked more dialed in. He looked more comfortable, and I figured that would happen because of him getting some run underneath of himself and getting some experience on what it's going to be like with the thumb in Game 3. And with the mask in Game 3, it looked like a different locked-in Joel from the start of this. It did it for James Harden. Let's be realistic. Started off missing a bunch of shots. He picks up a couple fouls. He goes to the bench. And I told myself, you can't be okay if you're getting a James Harden night where we've seen the inconsistent James Harden. He was unbelievable with a team high in plus-minus in Game 3, where he distributed the ball, he scored by attacking, and he grabbed some rebounds as well. You were ecstatic about what he did for your team when it comes to setting up the offense and getting everybody in their proper spaces and then getting good looks for the team. But we've seen plenty of drives, turnovers, loses the ball, gets sloppy with it. First couple possessions for him, when you were really targeting in on what James Harden and the experience was going to look like from the early stages, there were some head scratchers. And just knowing that it's been up and down, I'm thinking, no, not tonight, James. Please, not tonight. Second quarter comes around, electric. Fourth quarter comes around, even more electric. I don't know how that Dodge guy is sleeping on the court side underneath the basket. Someone had to check up on him, right? Come on now. That place was absolutely rocking, and we have a man sleeping underneath the basket? That's a problem. I don't even know how that's physically impossible, but I'm stoked. I'm pumped up. That was the most intense I've seen James Harden when it comes to that emotion and it comes to that fire and him screaming at the top of his lungs after drilling the threes. Outrageous 31.6 threes made, 16 points in the fourth quarter. I have the chills just thinking about it, and I don't want it to be this way. I prefer it to be a blowout, and I want the Sixers to win with ease where I don't have to sweat at all whatsoever. But I will admit, it was nice to just experience a super fun, entertaining game. I want the Sixers to win. And because they did, it's a lot easier for me to make this statement, right? If this is coming after a Sixers loss and I'm crushed and now it's 3-1 heading back to Miami, I'm not going to sit here and express my feelings on how I just enjoyed being a Sixers fan in a high leverage moment, in a high leverage situation, and embracing the fun of postseason ball. When you win, it's a little bit easier to do so, and that was absolutely the case for me, where I'm giving it my all, screaming. I even got the text from the fiance. Been a while since you were that hectic. Well, babe, 2-2, 2-2. They're feeling themselves, which is good. But you got to recognize it's going to be a different environment. It's going to be hostile. But you never got to really give it a whirl on the road with Joel in this series. And when you think of how the Miami Heat have to play defensively, it's a totally different style. It's a totally different level of effort. It's a different focus, which opens up the door for everyone else. Maxey gives you 18. Got to the free throw line 6 times. Drilled them all. Had a couple threes. Tobias Harris, it wasn't anything overwhelming, but I thought that there were some timely shots, whether it was a 3 or Tyrese Maxey's filthy pass for the alley-oop, where it was unbelievable to hear the eruption. Danny Green, the 4-point play in the first half. It sucks he missed the free throw. But you knew, with the way Danny's been playing, that he'd have a couple threes. You even had the luxury of not only a Matisse Thybulle from deep, you had the luxury of Niang make a couple shots. Double-digit points, to be exact. So up and down, you talk about double figures. You talk about getting important pieces on top of one of your stars having their night. See, Jimmy Butler didn't have any help. Don't look at Bam. Don't fool yourself. Bam's stat line is very fraudulent tonight. Don't look at Bam and say, well, 20 plus for him. No. Bam sucked. Bam was irrelevant to me. He took advantage of Tobias. He took advantage of not Joel Embiid. Stop it with that nonsense. Fraudulent. Jimmy Butler had zero help all around. Tyler Hero wasn't the Tyler Hero that was cashing in and red hot, which makes sense because there's no way every single night will be that explosive for him. So he cooled off a bit. So the Sixers, if you look at the Harden and the Jimmy Butler, they wash each other out. And what do you have from there? You got Embiid with 24, hot first, slowed down a bit afterwards, but there's a lot of reasons why that was. I thought Miami did a good job at somewhat daring the Sixers at times. Go ahead, try and make that pass. Sometimes I look at the Sixers and say, you need to be sharper there, and you have to deliver him the ball. There's matchups here where please. But what cracks me up is when Gabe Vincent is complaining about a foul call. Dude, you have Joel Embiid on you. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. What are you bitching about? He's a foot taller than you. Shut up. This is what happens when you get a mismatch. Shut up. Same with Kyle Lowry. And I can't believe the broadcast talking about, oh, this guy is Philadelphia. Shut up. I can't stand Kyle Lowry. And here he is playing with the injury. Well, you could tell. He left the game, he came back, and he probably re-injured himself when he flopped. Like the biggest flop I've ever seen. And James Harden cashes in a three right in his face when that's the case. He had a couple seconds to size it up. I would have stared right down at him. Maybe even mouthed a couple words to him. That's how much of a joke Kyle Lowry was. So, I mean, I'm just all around super excited on how they turned the page and they flipped the script. And realistically, the Miami Heat were gifted 2 wins to start this series off. And I was nervous that they were unfortunately dug in such a hole that it's hard. Miami could win a game. It's not like the Heat can't beat the Sixers with Joel one game. And if that so happened to be the case, after being gifted a 2-0 series lead, it's that much more difficult and realistically almost impossible to climb yourself out of a 3-1 when you see you're going to Miami. So the fact that they held strong and the confidence is there, the swagger's there, the attitude is there, and your entire team feels it. They know it. And that is really just from Embiid being back on the floor. His presence, it means the world. I referenced this throughout this series in the beginning stages. It just seems while the Sixers are battling and they're working hard, deep down internally, if you ask them on a lie detector test, how do you feel right now? Be honest with me. What is your tone like inside when you think about this matchup? You're going to lie if you say, yeah, we're going to be able to beat this team. No, you're not. No, you're not. As much as I bash Miami, and I don't think that they're a scary juggernaut by any means with the number 1 seed, if you don't have your best player in MVP, they're going to beat you. Because the alternative, they got, it seems, 57 different centers, and nobody can do it. Can they do it with minimum minutes? Yes. With Embiid out? Absolutely not. When he's there, it's go mode. It's we're going to do this mode. And Embiid is different this year. His maturity and approach as a professional is like no other. And it seems we're creating the storyline as we watch him progress. The big shot over Toronto. Game 3, overtime. That was iconic. We will look back at that shot as one of the best in his career. There may be some that top it as we watch more games play out, but that is going to be labeled one where in 20 years, remember what happened in Toronto? And he responded from the heartbreak in 2019 because in 2022, on the road in overtime, game 3 to go up 3-0, bang. Now he's battling the injuries in the fractured bone, in the orbital bone, and the thumb. And concussed. And there seems to be even more of a drive and more of a determination with those circumstances in play to get this done. And everybody feeds off that. Everybody believes in it. So game 5 is going to be unbelievable. It's going to be intense as hell. And if they squeeze one out there, coming back on your home floor, whoa. Now, I'm not getting ahead of myself. I'm not thinking of game 6. I'm not thinking of if it's possible for a game 7. My eyes and my focus is game 5. Now, I was on the Fanatic this afternoon, and one of the callers brought up that Eric Spoelstra scared the hell out of him because, okay, they were able to digest what the Sixers looked like with Joel Embiid in Game 3. Knowing Eric Spoelstra is a man that has a background in watching film back in the day and getting some advantages going with some sort of moves and adjustments within the series, watch out. Because they're going to dial up something that's going to massively change the outcome. And this was coming from a Sixers fan. I said, relax a bit. I'm not downplaying that Eric Spoelstra can make adjustments. You could tell that they did different things out there. With that said, and this was my response to him, if James Harden plays well, if Joel Embiid plays well, if Tobias and Maxey play well, if Danny Green plays his role, if everyone plays their role, it's irrelevant what the changes are going to be for Miami because you will outscore them. It's just that simple. And that's what it came down to. Miami, piss poor, missing shots, can't buy threes the same way that they were. While the Sixers, when they lost their games, missing shots, piss poor, couldn't deliver from three. I saw this stat after the game was over, and it goes back to the three-point shooting and how it all played out. And it looks like I didn't take the screenshot, which is what I normally do, but I know who tweeted it out, so I will go to their account, and I will have it up here in 1 second. And maybe, okay, three-point shooting in the Heat-Sixers series. Philly, the first two games, 21.9%, shooting 14 of 64. Miami, the last two games, shooting 14 of 65, 21.5%. So basically, if you break it down, the difference is one more attempt. The Heat has taken one more attempt in games 3 and 4 from deep than the Sixers took in games 1 and 2 from deep, and it's the same percentage, basically. And both teams lost. That's why I always say, I hate to be so simple because there are a lot of details and a lot of different moments that you could break down schematically and fronting Joel Embiid and Jimmy Butler exposing some holes and him scoring 40 plus points and, him getting a big and one when needed, always having the answer when you just needed to stop to maybe break away with a nice run, which, by the way, fourth quarter, start of the first quarter, nice explosion with Paul Reed in there, getting some foul calls and getting active in that department. Beautiful work, which is insanely important, knowing the difference with Embiid on the floor and not. I mean, you talk about the defensive intensity, the defensive rating with Embiid and without Embiid, you're talking just average, if that, compared to elites. I can't get over a 7-foot body frame staying with guards the way that he does. Hero struggling at the top of the perimeter to roll to his right and dribble to his right, looking for separation and looking for space with Embiid there. DeAndre Jordan doesn't do that. Paul Reed doesn't do that. Oladipo looks like me dribbling out there on my driveway where it's dribbling off my knees and I have to somehow gather myself and nobody's even guarding me. And here's a 7-foot body frame. Everything is that much more of a focus when Embiid is there in your face and in your grill and you're going to struggle. So it's not just they sucked and they missed a bunch of shots. There's a correlation on why they weren't getting the same looks, why they weren't drilling the looks the same way, because the Sixers' defense rose. I won't sugarcoat this, though. Role players play better at home than on the road. So we're going to need someone to step the hell up. We can't have feet stuck in the quicksand George Niang. I do have to give a round of applause to the Sixers, though, because when Niang makes a bucket and they do the, it's Friday night, that's amazing, right? Oh, I can go back to his snap story when they were on the bus and they were dancing and they were having a good time, and then it went into highlights. I don't know if you saw that or not, but as they were in the postseason here earlier on, Niang put that in his Instagram story or one of his social media platforms. The way you go with George Niang, that's A-plus work. That's incredible. Whoever did that deserves a damn raise. That was stuck in my head during the breaks. I went to get a coffee at halftime. I made a nice fat cup of Joe. Kara goes, "What the hell are you doing?" I'm sitting there with the coffee, bro. It's Friday night. She's like, "What, are the Sixers winning?" Are they winning? Next question, hon. What else do you want? I'm stoked with what I just saw out there. That was such a great team game. You just have to stay even keel and make sure you recognize, look, I know we're feeling ourselves. We should. You want a high level of confidence. You want to go into a game knowing we can expose this matchup, which they can. They have the matchups strategically to beat this Heat team. That's what I stated the whole damn time, and it's not just me. Everybody saw it. So when you saw the Eastern Conference standings play out the way that it did at the end of the regular season, Milwaukee, Boston, if you slide through Toronto, I actually like the second round matchup against Miami. Bam is a bum. Jimmy's a nice, solid player. And he's had nice games here. The difference is he hasn't had anyone else to help him. But is there a reason why? And the Sixers have those issues too, right? I mean, it's not like they're super thin. The Sixers are super thin. The Heat are deeper and in theory should have players who can help Jimmy Butler the more times than not. They should have that. But credit the Sixers. That's what they do. They make you work. They still have to clean up things defensively. Trust me, this wasn't a clinic by any means, okay? By any means, not a clinic. I view one guy, though, and I think to myself, I love you. Hans, how can one man have such a big impact on my emotions? How can one man, not only my emotions, but change thousands and thousands and thousands of people in this city by just playing a damn sport and doing it at a high level, an elite level, an MVP level? On the biggest stage, with a broken face, with one thumb, and a concussion. And by the way, had to take about a week off because he wasn't even able to look at his phone because the bright lights were hurting him, so he had to rest. We haven't even seen the best yet, said Doc Rivers when analyzing 21. I know. Oh, I know. He could do what he did in that first frame in another quarter and keep building off that. Easy. It just takes time to get back into it, to figure it all out. You know, I know it seems like he's just a robot, but there's actually pain involved here. And as games play out, you kind of work through it, you adjust it, and you figure out what you can and cannot do when out there in those games and in those moments. And I think he's kind of going through that now. All right, we will go to the phones at 856-442-9805. I would love to hear from you out there. Before we do, guys, we have a new partner here, and it's one that we've been wanting for a long time now. Freestone Farm CBD. It's my favorite brand because they farm it themselves with all organic inputs, and they offer the highest quality genetics in their strains and extracts. I've tried a lot of different brands, but honestly, Freestone Farm CBD has been amazing for me. I personally like using it after working out and before bed. I've been sleeping so much better at night. What's even more exciting, our friends at Freestone Farms just unveiled an all-new strain menu with some awesome CBD at really reasonable prices. Just check out their tropical-tasting Bayox that clocks in at 24.1% CBD. All of their premium hemp flower is grown on their Garden State farm with all organic inputs and IPM. Absolutely nothing synthetic from farm to jar. On top of that, use code BROADS for 20% off at checkout at Freestone Farm CBD. The link is down below in the description. All right, to the phones we go. I can't wait to hear your reaction on the night. We will take our first caller now. Hello, good evening. You are on Broads Media.
Hello?
Hello.
What's up, man? Long-time listener, first-time caller.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, big fan, proud of what you've been doing, man, for real.
Thank you.
To the game, I saw a stat before the game, and I saw that the Heat have a 67% win percentage when Scott Foster is the leading ref for the game. Harden is 1-13 when Scott Foster is the ref, and his one win is against Chris Paul, who's Scott Foster was a referee for that game. So the fact that he came and won the game with Scott Foster as a leading ref with all the controversy they had, that really stood out to me for this game.
Yeah, I know that was definitely rolling around all over social media when we found out the news on who the referee crew was going to be. So, I understood the frustration by everyone. I thought both teams had horrendous foul calls on both sides. There were missed calls. There were bad calls. Both teams had to deal with it. And at one point, you had a lot of Sixers in foul trouble, not as many on the Miami Heat side. It ended up evening out for both teams getting boned in certain situations. And from there, there's nothing you can do about it. There's nothing you could change. So you just have to keep battling discipline and keep going and make your damn shots. And James Harden in that fourth quarter with those step backs and his ability to drive at times, that was the difference maker, was him in the clutch.
It was amazing, man. It was a great win. Thank you for picking up, man. I appreciate it. You have a good night.
Thank you. You too. Thank you for calling in. Yeah, I know the Scott Foster thing's getting heavily analyzed every single time. You see his stats. You see Chris Paul's a big name that's always brought up with Scott Foster, and obviously James Harden too. And, you know, look, it's not a part of it's obviously a part of the side story, but it's not going to be my biggest focus. This is NBA basketball. All right, you can go to any podcast, any post-game show, any single ESPN show, Fox Sports show, you name it, whatever platform you enjoy the most, which maybe a little Broads Media might be at the top, you know what I'm saying? So whatever you utilize, you could hear bitching and complaining about a referee in any NBA game, in any NBA postseason. It's all going to be analyzed because they all suck at their job. That's part of it. In my notes, I could write it down in the beginning, and it will stay true no matter what game it is. Referees sucked. So I'll point out things that I hated. I didn't like the call on Danny Green. I didn't like the missed call on Tobias. I thought the call with Joel Embiid hitting Jimmy Butler in the face in a non-intentional way, that's the right flagrant call. I mean, you can go through the whole list. They sucked on both sides. What are you going to do about it? Because it's an uncontrollable. Go out there, compete, and do your damn job. James Harden did his damn job. Those threes, man. Those threes. And the way the crowd erupted and the way they showed James Harden and the face is super close up. They zoom in heavy on his face. The scream, the intensity. I hope that this snowballs into another game too. This is back-to-back strong performances. 31 isn't the 17 and the ball distribution that he had in Game 3 style of James Harden. This is unreal. I mean, I cannot expect him to do this again and again and again. I would be pleasantly surprised that I'm rooting for it. I don't think it's going to be 30-plus. There's a reason why he hasn't been delivering 30-plus games since the trade on a consistent rate. It's nice to know it's in there if you desperately need it, and I hope that this puts together a nice stretch. For example, when Danny Green got going, it's been a nice stretch of good Danny Green. When Tobias Harris got going, it's been a nice stretch of Tobias Harris. Let's hope and pray that this James Harden nice stretch of 2 games has the domino effect for Game 5. I'm just basing it off the track record of frustration with James Harden after good games and bad games and pulling our hair out of our heads because we're upset with a random game in there. That's part of James Harden. So I hope and pray that this snowballs into the confident Harden that feels comfortable making some of those threes and has that attitude about him, because you could see that it is a game changer when he's this hot, when he's this locked in. This was Harden locked in. And I'll reference something I said earlier on my radio show today. We don't demand James Harden for 30-plus anymore. It's not about him willing you to victory in games 1 and 2 without Joel Embiid. That's not why you brought him in here. You brought him in for the marriage of Harden and Embiid. That's what it was all about. The two together. What can they do together as a unit? To say it's a bust and it's a horrible trade because Harden couldn't do it solo, nah. And, of course, he has 30 today. Well, I said that. But the difference is it's because Embiid's out there. And it might not be just about points. It might not be just about rebounds. It might not be just about some steals and some blocks on the defensive side from Embiid's point of view. It's how does Miami now have to change their entire game plan and their effort level to focus in on Joel, which now opens up the floor for everybody else as well, where in previous outings, come on, you got away with playing someone who doesn't even deserve to play NBA basketball anymore. The guy shouldn't even be in the league. He played serious minutes in games 1 and 2 in DeAndre Jordan. Come on now. Crazy. Let's go to Max in Indiana. What's up, Max?
How's it going, bros?
It's going well, dude. It's not like I'm having a bad night.
I back on Friday, my mom texted me. I was gone for the weekend. She goes, "Do not come home if the Sixers lose on Friday night. I don't want Mother's Day ruined."
That's incredible. That's funny. Well, how does she feel? How does she feel now?
She feels great. I mean, there was a moment tonight when Harden hit that step-back dagger at the end of the game. I'm sitting there screaming at the TV because Embiid's open on the corner down on the bottom of the screen, and I'm screaming, pass it to Embiid. And my brother, as Harden takes that last dribble, goes, no need, and he drains the three, and my whole family jumps up, and we're going nuts. I mean, it was just incredible.
Yeah, as they should. And, during some of those late possessions after Harden did his thing, they were trying to eat up the clock and they were, dribbling it out to about 2 seconds. And I was holding my breath with a couple of those possessions where it wasn't as beautiful as I would like it to be. But all around, they found a way to stay strong. And even when Jimmy Butler was making his run, it just looked like he didn't have any help. And I'm not going to rule out an NBA player going off for 40-plus and stealing a game, because that's what the NBA is all about. When Embiid hit that shot in Game 3 against Toronto, it's not like the Sixers absolutely deserved to win, but you stole one because your best player in the biggest moments delivered, and you won the damn basketball game. I wasn't ruling out Jimmy Butler doing that, but I just thought he needed that extra put. Maybe it could have just been one guy. Maybe Miami just needed one guy, but it didn't smell like anyone was going to do it. So I felt comfortable even throughout those Jimmy Butler pushes and those Jimmy Butler baskets.
Yeah, and then after the game, we finally got a Doc Rivers quote that I can get behind fully. They asked him about what's the way you can bring the momentum down to Miami, and he said, Joel Embiid stepping on the plane.
Oh, Max, come on, dude. You're going to hit me with goosebumps like that. You're damn right, Doc. You're damn right, Doc. See, I'm ready to run through a damn brick wall. It's 11:47. I got caffeine rolling through my damn veins. When I came home from work today, I was watching a little bit of the Phillies doubleheader. They won Game 1. Game 2 was a snooze fest. You got Christopher Sanchez on the mound starting the game due to the COVID protocols. So I found myself taking a little bit of a snooze, okay? I needed to reset knowing tonight was going to be a massive night. So I had the puppies. The one was sleeping on my right side. The other one was sleeping towards my leg. I took a little bit of an in and out, little cat nap, a little bit of an eye rest, if you will, because I knew tonight I was going to need all the emotions to just let my rage of excitement run through this damn microphone when the Sixers won the game. I mean, I smelled it from the time I woke up this morning and grabbed my venti iced coffee, and I knew the Sixers were going to win. The Sixers were going to win, and it's all because this is a different Joel Embiid. This Joel Embiid is a whole new level from regular season Joel, from last year's Joel. I mean, I'm just telling this guy, it's such a different level of being wired, and it's based off of the adversity. I think this guy thrives off of battling through adversity and toughness. It's something that he uses as motivation. And that's a scary thing if I'm on the other side. How does Miami feel good about themselves going back home? We got to take care of this guy. We have to figure out a way to stop this guy. Did he cool off a little bit after the first quarter? Yeah, he did. He did. The idea of having to focus on stopping him, even if you do a better job at slowing him down, because no one actually stops greatness. You slow them down and make them earn it and make them work for it. On an off day, great players that have off days, it's about just limiting the damage. And don't get me wrong, sometimes a Kevin Durant will have a bad fourth quarter like we saw this playoff series. Obviously, I'm talking about when you look at the percentages and you look at the full body of work, there are once in a blue moon nights where guys have off nights just because not their night. But for the most part, you don't stop greatness, you limit greatness, and you make them work, you make them earn it. So Joel Embiid's 24 points. The Miami Heat think, okay, he scored 15 in the first quarter. We did an excellent job from that point of slowing him down. Without recognizing, though, I mean, I'm sure they recognize it, but just to put it in full circle here in context, even if you, quote, slow him down and stop him from scoring 15 points in a quarter on 6 shots and getting to the line, the emphasis and all of the energy focusing on doing that is what then allows the rest of the squad to open up and have a bigger game, or a lot of guys play their role and do their job. Maxey 18, Tobias double-digit figures, Niang double-digit figures, and of course Harden. But I'm just saying, your other tiers of players on your roster, They all did what they needed to do. I just thought Tobias had timely moments, and just gives you professional ball, of course. Sometimes I shake my head wondering how. How did Tobias go to this extreme? Because even I, who was never a hater and gave him more of a benefit of the doubt during his struggles, I knew he could be better. I did not think it could be this good. And if you look at his numbers, I always went back to last year's numbers in the playoffs. 22 points per game, 37% from three. And all I asked for was that. Give me that again. Not so much how many points per game, because he's going to be taking different amount of shots being the fourth option compared to being the second option. So it wasn't about the same total number of points. It was about the efficiency. Can we get the same efficiency? Last year, he took 18 field goals per game in the postseason. This year, he's at 14, so it's 4 less shots. Obviously, the points are going to be different. This year, he's averaging 18 points per game in the postseason to last year's 22. But the difference is, last year, he shot 37% from three. This year, it's closer to 39. Last year, he shot 3.5 threes per game. This year, it's basically at 5. So not only is he taking more, he's making it at a higher clip while taking less shots. But, dude, the confidence with the ball in his hands, even when he sees a mismatch that he likes, it seems like he's patient within the approach of the possession. Where before, it would be all hectic, he'd be out of sync, he'd be out of whack. It's like his body's moving at a different speed than his mind is, which would then result in either a turnover or the ball would hit the front of the rim and it would be short or it would be too long. It just looked awkward. Now you could see him sizing up, using his body one-on-one, taking advantage of the size difference, and then knowing when to pull the trigger on a mid-range jumper or, just maybe it's kicking it out and resetting, whatever. Just the IQ of those moments are significantly different, and it happened with the blink of an eye. It's crazy, and I'm just admiring how much it has changed and how quickly it has, and he's just been balling, man. I'm just really enjoying this version of Tobias Harris as an overall professional. Let's go to Amadeo. Hey, Amadeo.
Hey, at least you got that pregame nap before, because apparently the guy courtside did not get the memo. How are you falling asleep when James Harden is dropping 30 plus, and how are you falling asleep when the Wells Fargo Center is that electric? I don't understand.
Honestly, here's your answer. There had to have been something wrong, right? I mean, honestly, though, you're right. It's actually physically impossible. So my first thought is the dude was hammered and absolutely buckled, and he's dozing off. But realistically, you see that, and I know the first reaction is, what the hell? Everyone's kind of making fun of it on social media. But in all honesty, something had to have been wrong, right?
You would think that would be the logical excuse, but I honestly don't know.
Yeah, crazy.
I just don't know. That's just like a crazy situation entirely, but still. Like, going back to even you talking about Tobias, like, it's just all confidence with him right now. Maybe like him being more of the fourth option, because without James Harden here, going back to last year, Tobias is more of the 2 to 3 option right there with Ben Simmons on the court. Maybe him being that fourth option, getting those different matchups, is allowing him to be more confident, take those shots, and hit them with efficiency. And also, when you just have James Harden being on the court, being the awesome facilitator that he is, maybe that's just allowing Tobias to be more of himself and allow him to get that confidence to where he can be that efficient, and he just brings that throughout his entire game.
Yeah, no, it's definitely that. I mean, in terms of matchup, he's still playing the 4, so that is still the same position. But you hit on it with the James Harden thing and Joel and Tyrese Maxey blossoming on the scene as well, which, he adapted well, more catch and shoot. And it's just a little different on how he's playing the game, where before you had to force it to him because Ben Simmons would stand underneath the basket after he dribble up the floor, hand it off. Tobias Harris had to play a different role where he was forced to be more aggressive and forced to take the ball in certain areas where that's not his skill set. That's not what he's suited to do best. Where right now with James Harden running the floor so efficiently and finding open teammates, and when he attacks, that changes the way the defense has to suffocate in the paint, which opens up some corner 3 looks and focusing it on Embiid, all of it. And Maxey having that burst of speed that you have to respect. It's just the way that the new ball handling in a half-court set opens up the ability of this spacing, and that gives Tobias Harris more room to operate, where before he had to force things because of how suffocating it was.
Exactly. When you have so many like different guys that can possibly be a threat on the court, you know Embiid's going to be a threat every time he steps out there. You know James Harden has a possibility to be a threat. You know Tyrese Maxey has those glimpses where he can be a threat. Hell, Danny Green has been a threat, the past couple of games since Game 3. And basically now you add Tobias Harris to that mix when he could be as efficient as hell. Like, there's a lot of weapons there. And to where you have guys that could be a threat, that, puts a lot of stress on the defense. And that can help Tobias in that standpoint.
You're right. And the question becomes, Amadeo, appreciate you calling in. The question becomes, does this transfer down to Miami? Are you going to get this on the road? We haven't seen them do it yet. They haven't played with their most important prized possession either. And that's what's giving me hope. Where if you look at it from Miami perspective, because I'm sure Miami Heat fans are saying, well, it's that simple. You won at home, you lost on the road. You made shots at home, you didn't on the road. Get back to Miami, we'll be fine. And my only argument to this whole, where the Sixers shot so poorly in Miami, so how can you expect it to change? And, they're thin, and their role players aren't consistent. Trust me, I'm right there with you. I've watched this team play enough where you're not wrong to make those type of statements. But the difference is, this Miami Heat team, talk about Kyle Lowry all you want. Obviously, he's banged up and he's battling some sort of issue. I mean, maybe it's more beneficial for them not even to go out there with him because he's lingering. It's lingering that much, and you could tell that he's hobbling every time he's running up and down the floor. Bam, in this matchup, you can make the argument that going small makes Miami sometimes even look a little bit sharper than with Bam out there because he's afraid to attack Joel Embiid as he should. When Embiid leaves the game and then Bam comes back in, all right, he starts drawing a little bit, thinking about what he could do offensively. And with the Sixers with the zone, when he's moving without the basketball and getting the ball as he's going head of steam downhill, okay, it looks a little bit better. But is there an argument with P.J. Tucker and stretching the floor and trying to go down that avenue? Is that something that Miami can try and do to, I don't know, get a little bit better of a matchup there? Because Embiid can steal Bam Adebayo's lunch money any single day of the week. Miami's been the same team, while the Sixers have clearly not been the same team. And obviously there's an asterisk here around Kyle Lowry, but this version of Kyle Lowry is beat up. He's torn. He can barely give you anything anymore. I watched him at one point. He had a wide open opportunity to take a shot 5 feet from the basket. And it looked like he was so uncomfortable that he dunked it off to somebody else who was running the floor, and he allowed for them to finish at the rim. But in no way, shape, or form should a healthy NBA player do that during that sequence. And I think that's somewhat just of a description on how much pain he's in. And I give him credit for trying to go out there, but I'm sorry, you watch him. It seems like it's not helping out this basketball team there, Kyle. It's just not. Let's go to Jimmy. What's up, Jimmy?
What's up, Roots? I mean, wow. Tables are completely turned on the series. And, yeah, everyone's going to talk about Harden tonight. I mean, Harden completely came to play. It's probably the best game he's played as a Sixer. I would say that.
Of course.
I think he had some good games
Jimmy,
in the regular season, but playoffs, big movement.
Keep this in mind, Jimmy. The knock on him was, this guy sucks in the postseason, this guy's awful in the postseason, and he'll never show up because he's got small testicles. Seriously, that's what was being labeled about James Harden. And he has had some bad games, but he definitely just had a monster game to help this team to victory.
Yeah, he definitely chokes in the playoffs, unlike Ben Simmons and Seth Curry and how well that trade worked out for them. But the main point is that Embiid really was the X factor coming into the series, and I remember Miami Heat fans after Game 2 saying, "Well, we would dust you even if you had Embiid," or also they said, "Well, we're missing Lowry the first 2 games, so stop bitching about missing Embiid," as if that's at all comparable.
Yeah, they're uneducated is what it comes down to. They're just uneducated, and they want to convince themselves something. And the last thing I'm going to speak about is the Miami Heat fan base that doesn't even show up for their playoff games until the second quarter begins, if that. About the third quarter is when you start seeing the bottom half fill out. So I'm not going to take any sort of sports knowledge from somebody in the Miami Heat fan base trying to tell me the difference between a Joel Embiid, who should win MVP, and Kyle Lowry, who is a nice player, and I do think that he has a role on a team that can obviously do some damage. We've seen him be a piece to success. He was never able to accomplish it as a duo with DeMar DeRozan, which is fair because they are clearly not even close to being on that level of NBA championship and serious playoff run level of players. But as a really solid starter with a superstar in Kawhi Leonard, it could work. Right now, though, with where he's at physically and this hamstring injury clearly causing him a lot of issues, well, yeah, I mean, come on now. Not everyone can go through their respected injury the same way. Embiid is handling his a certain way. Lowry's going through a totally different experience. That's no knock on him. Some injuries cause a little bit more issues than others. And, you know, you can make the argument. I mean, you think of pretty much a fracture in your thumb and in your orbital bone wearing a mask. I mean, yeah, it's hard to play through. But I'm not sitting here bashing Kyle Lowry for having an injury that's limiting him. I'm just saying that's part of it. I'm not taking any sort of talks to Miami Heat fans and telling me what they see and think that it's actually valued in my mind. It's not valued whatsoever. What I value is what I see with my two eyeballs and what I process in my brain. And I see a team that's got killer attitude right now, that's got their heart and soul back on the floor, and everybody is rallying around it. Even James Harden, who's a veteran, who's a pro's pro, and who has logged in a ton of basketball to the point where you talk about the top 75 players to do it. He's in that conversation during the All-Star weekend, big splash at the trade deadline. Even someone like him gets a bit of a surge and gets a bit of a rise when Joel Embiid returns. Someone who's been around the block and has been MVP form himself at one point, dropping 30-plus, averaging for years and years and years down in Houston. While he did have some ugly moments in postseason that everyone always mentions and says he can never do it because he had poor moments, which is outrageously pathetic. Because everyone's had, Michael Jordan has had horrendous playoff moments. Michael Jordan has had some playoff losses, playoff series losses. Everyone does. Just because you've had bad playoff losses doesn't mean you can never have big playoff moments. That's stupid. James Harden even gets a rise from seeing Embiid return. And I can't wait to see how they bottle all this up and react when they head to Miami for a Game 5. The snowball effect from this great two-game set in Philadelphia. With that, we're going to shut things down here. I want to thank everybody so much for hanging out with me. If you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate all of your support. If you're looking to buy tickets to go to any event out there, you can utilize the promo code BROADS at SeatGeek's checkout page. If you are a first-time user on SeatGeek, promo code BROADS, that eliminates all those fees. There's so many great prices on tickets right now. Don't be a fool. Get yourself to a game. That's free parking. That's free booze. And then lastly, social media at Broads Media on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. Make sure you hit the follow button there. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight, and I